I didn't know it was her sister. Sorry. Hi, hello, and welcome to The Jib. This bi-weekly podcast is about the many and varied schemes of the many and varied U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies, organizations, and committees, and how they are stupid and funny. Join us on our merry journey through space and time. Hi, my name is Barry, and I enjoy the romantic attention of men in my local public restroom every Friday from 8 to 10 p.m. No big frills, it's just a hole-in-the-wall place.
I'm sure it's lovely.
Oh, it's just the styling, and it's very nice, kind of 70s themed, yeah.
Oh, nice. Very deco, huh? I'm Seamus. You may know, you may all know me from my guitar work as a guest artist on Twisted Sphincters, Love is Like a Hemorrhoid.
Like a hemorrhoid. That was you doing that guitar work?
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah,
nice one.
Yeah.
Hemorrhoid.
That's exactly what it was like.
Okay. We're not here to discuss hemorrhoids or indeed my weekend activities. We are here to talk about lavender, a lovely plant that smells delightful. Also, I should warn everybody, there is some delightful language coming up, very explicit language. Also, Seamus gave me this script yesterday, and it's really funny, and I will be laughing a lot. And we just have to write it out together, okay, guys?
Okay. We needed a laugh after the last episode.
Oh my god, yeah, sure, it was grim. This is also grim, but fucking hilarious.
It's definitely grim. But this is another one. I always sweat the scripts. I know this is an old
you do
thing, but I've been sweating, as you know, doing this particular story because. Yeah, I've
asked you to do this on a number of occasions, haven't I? Right. Every time Seamus says to me, "Oh, what'll I do next? What? Do the lavender one?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know."
So what I would want to touch on is the lavender scare. But to do the lavender scare, we have to do a little bit of history. So we're actually doing a whole part just setting up some of the things that went on as far as
brilliant.
Gay life and how the government and folks were cool on it for reasons. So yeah, that's what this part's going to be leading up to the lavender scare.
You know, I loves me some historical setup, right?
Yeah. So, nice shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Irish Antifa. The Guinness. That's the Guinness.
There you go.
The script.
So our story begins in colonial times, and we're actually going to be talking about early Americana, right? So colonial times, laws regulating homosexuality were heavily influenced by English common law and Puritan religious beliefs. Shocking, right? Homosexual acts were considered not only sinful, but criminal, punished by severe penalties. Sodomy was a term. What's that?
Is that just a general punishment picture?
Yeah, just a general picture of a guy that got in trouble for doing some poking or getting poked. I don't know. A term broadly used to encompass various same-sex sexual activities was criminalized in the 13 colonies. For example, in 1610, the Virginia colony imposed the death penalty for sodomy under law. Similarly, the Massachusetts Bay Colony enacted the Body of Liberties in 1641, which included the death penalty for sodomy. The Puritans who settled
liberty you don't have, mate.
Right, in New England viewed homosexuality as a grievous sin against God. In 1636, Nicholas Session, a prominent settler in Windsor, Connecticut, was accused of sodomy. Despite multiple accusations over several decades, Session was not convicted until 1677. Reflecting
That's
both
like 40 years after he was accused of it. Okay.
Yeah, reflecting the severity of the accusations and hesitation to prosecute a well-respected community member without definitive proof.
So he was just lots of gay all the time, this guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of, openly gay people. That's what a lot of this is. The Enlightenment era brought about some shifts in thinking, including attitudes towards criminal justice, though sodomy laws remained stringent. While capital punishment for sodomy persists in some colonies, others began to adopt less severe penalties. For instance, in Pennsylvania legal code of 1700, still considered sodomy a capital offense, but enforcement was sporadic. Enlightenment. What happened to my screen here? Enlightenment thinker such as Thomas Jefferson, began advocating for more rational and humane criminal laws. In 1779, Jefferson proposed a law in Virginia reducing the penalty for sodomy from death to castration.
Yay!
Boy, that's a thing to consider there, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what? I'll take the death.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I need my balls for various activities in bathrooms from Friday 8 to 10.
Jesus Christ. Though it was not adopted, it reflected a shift towards less dramatic punishments.
Okay.
Sodomy remained criminalized throughout the United States with varying degrees of enforcement. The common thread was that continuations of laws inherited from colonial times through the death penalty became less common.
Right. Now what we have is we have a top 10. It's an early one this time. Usually we plant these top 10s in the middle of the episode as a mental health break from the unrelenting misery and catastrophe of whatever our opposite is about, right? But this is thematically consistent. Don't worry. This is all scripted, okay? I'm reading it from the script. Don't worry. We have tested these scripts on several focus groups, and they all agree that it's probably more or less acceptable. Okay, so here we are. In order of what the fuckness, the top 10 United States colonial Puritan punishments. Number 10.
Photo up now, or do you want that later?
What?
The photo that you have for this?
Throw it on at when I say number 5.
Number 5, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry
You're
about
gonna like
that.
number 5, folks. Number 5 will amaze you. Okay, number 10, public humiliation. Okay, for minor offenses, you might just have to wear a wooden sign detailing the crime or stand in a public place while being mocked by the community.
Doesn't sound too bad.
A lot of these things are quite performative rather than,
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange. I guess because that's what Jesus would have wanted. You remember what Jesus said, wear a wooden sign with your crime outlined on it. These people follow the gospel, right? 9, banishment. Although it seems low intensity in these days of internet and private car ownership and general social mobility, banishment was rough back then, right? You were effectively cut off from all social and economic support. And I guess if you were lucky, some Native Americans would pick you up maybe on the road. Number 8, number 8, fines and property confiscation. For various moral failings, people could be heavily fined or have their property confiscated, which could have catastrophic consequences for their ability to maintain a household, which I guess is also true today.
Yeah.
7, stocks. Offenders were put in the stocks, the stocks, the wooden thing with the arms and all, with their heads and hands were locked into place. They were then subjected to more public ridicule and often pelted with rotten food.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Often, people put in the stocks were left out overnight.
Yeah.
And do you know what happened to the guys in the stock?
With their ass up.
Uh-huh. So if you were convicted of sodomy, you're just gonna get some more sodomy overnight, baby.
Yes, yeah, when no one's looking.
What the fuck?
I'll be in the stocks from 7 to 8 p.m. on Friday. All right, pelted with rotten food. Number 6. At number 6, the ducking stool. You've probably seen this in the movies.
Yeah.
Used almost exclusively for women accused of gossiping or scolding. The woman, because it was almost always a woman, was tied to a chair and repeatedly ducked into water, which is like waterboarding. Not as bad as waterboarding, but it was still like that,
Yeah.
The idea, by the way, that women... It still prevails today that women own gossip is insane. Like, as soon as this podcast is finished, myself and Seamus will be like, you'd never believe what I just heard, right? Yeah. But when women do it, it's seen as idle banter that's just wasting everyone's time. When men do it, they're networking and making decisions, fuck off.
Yeah,
anyway.
I've experienced more from men as far as bullshit gossip than women.
Yeah, of course.
By far.
But when men do it, it's parts different. When women do it, there they go again. Fuck off, you prick. Anyway. Number 5, we have the brank. Look at that. That's a brank. The skull's bridle. As you can see, this is a metal thing with an iron bit that fit into the mouth in the middle there, used to punish and silence women accused of being talkative or scolding their husbands. Now look at that.
It's always women again.
I can promise you no man ever wore that no matter what he said. It's okay for men to scold their wives, of course, but if a woman tries anything, she has to put that on. That looks like a nasty... That's so bad. As I was saying in the green room, you wouldn't even see that on the Pornhub section that's specifically for that kind of thing. That's pretty bad. And
you have the research to prove that too, right?
Well, I had to do the research, yeah. I was forced to gather more evidence. Anyway, at 4, public whipping. Again, speaking of Pornhub. For offences such as theft, people were tied to a post in the middle of town and whipped. My sources on this contain the following sentence. This punishment was meant to shame the offender and deter others from similar behaviour. So I suppose we'll just have to take their word for that, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for explaining why you would do that to somebody. Number 3, branding. Just think of the kind of mind Jesus never said any of this, right?
Excuse me.
For more serious crimes such as blasphemy or adultery, offenders were sometimes branded with a hot iron, right? Adulterers were branded with an A. Presumably blasphemers were branded with a B, and so on, until those engaged in a crime that starts with a Z would be branded with a Z. I don't know, Zionism. 2. Ear cropping. For offences like blasphemy again or repeat theft, parts of the offender's ear will be cut off to mark the offender permanently. I guess it's like getting one of those teardrop tattoos, is it? I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And the number one, what did I call it? The number one United States colonial Puritan punishment, of course, you could have guessed this, is execution. During the Salem witch trials, those accused of witchcraft were executed, often by hanging. The trials were based on terrible evidence, as we all know now, and some knew at the time, and mass hysteria, leading to the death of 20 people and the imprisonment of many more. And that is the end of the top 10 United States colonial Puritan punishments.
Cool.
Now back to the gays.
Back to the gays. Oh, it's just us now.
Yeah.
The 19th century saw the beginning of medicalization of homosexuality influences. Figures like Richard von Croft Ebing, let's go with that. Whose book Psychotherapy Sexuals classified homosexuality as a mental illness, which we know that was in the DSM-5 until the 70s.
You know what? It's progress, right?
Yeah. Take it as you can.
What kind? Yeah.
This began to shape perceptions. This marked a shift from seeing homosexual acts purely as a moral or criminal issue, but to consider them to be a medical problem. In 1892, Dr. James Carenham published one of America's first journals articles on homosexuality, describing it as a sexual perversion. This period marked the beginning of psychiatric and psychological interest in homosexuality, laying the groundwork for future treatments and attitudes.
Cool.
So, by the early 20th century, I should say, most states still had sodomy laws on the books. Many introduced additional statutes criminalizing gross indecency, lewd, lasciviousness. I can never say that. Lasciviousness? Is that how you say that?
Lascivious, I would say.
Yeah, let's go with that. Behavior often used to target homosexual acts. In the early 1920th century, saw the increase of public awareness of homosexuality through various scandals.
Like the Oscar Wilde, I guess.
Yeah. The most notorious was what we're going to talk about today, the Newport sex scandal. So, in the Navy.
Men wanted for the U.S. Navy.
So, most of this I'm taking from The Other Side of Silence, Men's Lives and Gays' Identities by John Lower. Some of this I'm literally reading verbatim almost from because I'm a hack and a fraud. So, but
I use ChatGPT, Seamus, to structure my podcast. You're in the clear. Use a book. You're already better. So,
again, this story is going to kind of set up the next episode, which we may be doing right after this. So we're recording this at the beginning of Pride. What's that?
Do you remember I said this episode is hilarious?
Yes, we'll see. It's for them to judge, Barry.
Yeah, okay.
So, in 1907, investigations into St. Louis have been shocked by the spectacle of a number of black men, many of them cooks, butlers, and chauffeurs from the better homes, carousing in drag with white men at a local dance hall. A discovery of at least unsettled for the violations of racial taboos, as well as for suggested about the erotic deviance in Missouri. The names of the, quote, Negro perverts, end quote, were published in the newspaper, according to an area doctor, but, quote, the names of the white degenerates consorting with them were not given.
Of course. And now we know that a degenerate is slightly above the pecking order than perverts. Degenerates, perverts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's good to know. A scandal in Portland, Oregon in 1912 had led to the arrest of a dozen prominent citizens, including lawyers and the Chamber of Commerce officials who had been involved in a sex ring at the local YMCA.
That explains a lot if you know anything about Portland, Oregon.
Vice commissions in the large cities routinely noted the prevalence of male homosexuals, but smaller towns such as Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and Boise, Idaho, had to attend to their problems in their midst during the war years. A roundup
in the script, Seamus has quote marks around the word problem.
yeah, a roundup of gay men in San Francisco. 1918 followed a raid on Baker Street clubs, led to more than 13 arrests and investigations that were called off only when the names of several well-connected individuals were mentioned.
There you go. All right, guys, all the gay guys in the band, come on.
Yeah,
not like that.
In gay American history, in gay New York, historian Jonathan and Ned Katz and George Chauncey were verified
book,
to. What's that? Yeah,
the name of the book, Gay American History and Gay New York.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have verified the extent of the dynamic public homosexual presence in Manhattan.
Dynamic public homosexual, like George Michael. Dynamic public homosexual.
Oh,
look at it! Look.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
But even in Louisville, Kentucky, and New Haven, Connecticut, a man come out before World War I could find a place in loosely defined and supportive, if less visible, subculture.
Yeah, okay.
Now, the ladies of Newport, as the resident sailors called themselves, were not quite abnormal. They seemed to some of the people at the time.
Hello, ladies.
So, I mean, cause, that's their thing. In the Navy. I mean, this goes back to the the days of the pirates and stuff. I mean, being gay was because there was a not homosexual, but homosocial.
Yeah.
Right. So, because you're at sea, what are you gonna do? It's okay. It's okay to be gay on the boat.
Also, gays are everywhere, and that's why when you hear governments like repressive governments saying things like "we have solved our homosexual problem" or "we don't have any homosexuals in China" or whatever, you can slow your roll there and say, "No, wait a second. I can promise you there are gays in China. So either it's gone very underground or you've done a Holocaust. One of those two things is true. If you hear that."
Yeah. So, for a town, I'll throw up some more sailors.
Gay.
For a town
in the front is definitely gay. He's fabulous. Look at him.
Oh yeah, he's stretched all out. Look at me.
Yeah, like one of your French girls.
Yeah. For a town best known for the elegant summer retreat for Americans' wealthiest families, site of naval training stations that accommodated 2,000 sailors in 1917 and 12 times that number a year later.
What's that? 24,000.
Hey, look at you with the math.
There you go.
Newport had managed the trauma of mobilizing as well as it could to expect. Complaints about the ease in which sailors came by liquor, cocaine, and the services of the women of the night disturbed the straight-laced head of Naval Department, Joseph Daniels. But a series of crackdowns of brothels closing, the Newport's mayor insisted that the city was as clean as any in America.
I mean, yes, but not for the reasons he thinks.
Oh.
It is as clean as any in the United States, but I would go the other way on that.
Maybe. Now let's talk about Chief Machinist Mate Irvin Arnold. He was recently transferred from San Francisco to Newport. Arnold was in his 40s, was a 14-year veteran of the Navy. Before he enlisted, he did some work as a private eye for about 9 years in Connecticut. Now, Arnold, when he comes into our story, was being treated for severe rheumatism in the Naval Training Station Hospital, February 1919, when his suspicions were aroused by an effeminate young sailor in a hospital.
Wait. Is that what they call it these days? His suspicions were aroused.
Yes, that's exactly it. Conversations with the others subsequently confirmed Samuel Rogers was indeed known about the town as a pogue or a punk, a man who enjoyed receptive anal sex.
Okay.
A second patient Arnold met this week, Thomas Brunell, mentioned the names of others he knew with similar tastes and implied that Newport was a great
place
for contacts and parties along the line.
Right.
So Arnold is so troubled by this that he decides to investigate further. What Arnold discovered, what he discovered during the ensuing days, was an eclectic world of gay men and trade of dressers and party givers, cocaine addicts, and heavy drinkers, for whom mobilization had been wildly socially acceptable. Thomas Brunel's steady, named Billy Hughes, was nicknamed Salome. He recently appeared in drag as a female lead in a musical at the naval station. Military men in drag for theater purposes raised few eyebrows at the time. There was, you know that from studying history and stuff of theater. That mainly all the women characters were played by men in drag. I mean, what's a big deal, right?
For centuries and centuries of drama, it was always played by men looking like women.
Or even later during the World War II in drag. Ronald Reagan's been in drag, boys. So,
No.
yeah. But Brunel hosted that Hughes paid him regularly for sex. Arnold also met Theta Barra.
Wait, it says here, it says Thomas Brunel steady. Does that not mean like a boyfriend or something?
Why
is he paying him all the time? Oh, okay.
He's just helping him out, I guess. He helped them out, so he's helping him out. What's the problem, Barry?
Sorry.
Sound rather judgmental. Sounds just judgmental. No, that's sex shaming. That's your sex shaming. That's what you're doing.
Sorry.
So, how dare you?
Turned on by the sight of cash, is that it?
Yeah. Stick to your hole in the wall, Barry.
All right. I will, don't worry. When Friday rolls around, I'll be there.
All right. Arnold was met Theta Barra, a hospital corpsman. Fred Hogue was known, and Ruth John Gianalio, something like that was his real name. Geloni, who was praised for his oral skills, much like their friend Becky Goldstein, who had everyone agreed a nice chin to rest a pair of balls on. That's the actual quote. That's a quote.
It's all in quote marks. Yeah.
Yes. Frank Day was so good. Arnold was told that he could draw your brains out through your penis.
That's not what I want to happen, but okay.
Yeah. The ladies of Newport were often joined in their partying at apartments at Whitefield Court and on Golden Hill Street by assortment of civilians, including waiters, area librarians, salesmen from Providence. The Downtown Army and Navy YMCA, not surprising, had become one of the key centers of activity.
Young man, there's a place you can go, I said, young man.
So, Lieutenant Aratus Hudson of the Training Station Welfare Office agreed with Arnold, and the two of them took up matters to the station commander. Within a short time, a four-man court of inquiry under Lieutenant Commander Murphy had established to study immoral conditions in Newport, and Assistant Secretary of Navy Roosevelt.
That's a young man.
Acting as head for the Department of Secretary Joseph Daniels, who, remember the obscene guy who does something like that stuff, right? Agreed, quote, a most searching and rigorous investigation, end quote, needed to be conducted with the aims of prosecuting those individuals responsible for spreading degeneracy. Thank you. Hold on a second. Okay, my cursor kept on moving. Sorry, new computer. Now, Arnold was certain that he knew how to make this case work. Mind you, he often boasted that he could spot a homosexual within 90% accuracy. I believe that's called gaydar, Barry. This is the guy that invented gaydar, right?
But gay guys can't spot homosexuality with 90% accuracy,
right? Yeah, maybe they should enlist him to help him out. I mean, I don't know. This guy's so good. Mm-hmm. Accordingly, he quickly enlisted the staff of the Naval investigators in the capacity of detectives who would circulate among suspected populations of perverts.
Here we go.
At the YMCA or elsewhere, striking up friendships, taking careful note of all transpired. He wanted no one over 30. He said that on the well-known aspirations that homosexuals never bothered with men that old. His ideal volunteer was in his late teens or early 20s, handsome, and willing to put himself in awkward situations for the good of the service. He found an ample number to take on the assignment. More than a dozen. And sought assurances that his men, if forced to break the law, that is, go the limit to complete their mission, would not themselves be subject to prosecution.
You must continue with the mission until completion.
Yes, to completion. Yes. The specific duties the recruits were charged with fell into 3 areas: to gather information about cocaine joints, the sale of liquor, to gather information, quote, pertaining to cocksuckers and rectum receivers, in any network of, quote, said fairies. To gather information about prostitutes in the area. Yep. In reality, once the project hit its stride, Arnold's band of investigators showed no interest in to speak of in the, quote, fallen women of the night.
He found an ample number to take on.
Yes, he did. He did.
Holy shit. Okay,
and only minimal concerns about illegal drug traffic.
Okay.
What went on behind closed doors at the YMCA or in the romantic shadows of Cliff Walk was another matter. Right? That's what they're all down about. Yeah. The operation kicked off on March 17th, St. Patty's Day. Arnold's squad of Johns hung out at the YMCA and made dates, most of whom, one of them met with Thomas Brunel right out of the gate, right? So one of the guys that he met at the hospital. They attended parties, once for strolls with their new acquaintance after dark by the beach and in the cemetery.
What kind of a person goes for a walk in a cemetery? How is that romantic?
You like to hang out in cemeteries.
Why don't you you don't know anything about me.
Yeah, I do.
This is about my Instagram feed. For the last 2 days, all I've been doing is walking around cemeteries. Go on.
Yeah. Sorry, drink break. Files on the men were succumbed to the charms of Arnold's entrappers, grew up at a frantic pace to Arnold's delight. Typed up by his assistant with exacting and colloquial detail.
That is exactly the word. Exacting and colloquial is exactly how I describe it too.
No details to be spared. No. Tell me it's slower.
Yeah. What? And don't say penis. Don't. His equipment. No.
In at least 2 instances, operatives later admitted that having had anal sex to orgasm with the delights of their partners. Transcripts indicated that others slept the night through in the same bed once the deed was done, with the operative even paying for the room with Becky Goldstein. Operative Britton struck up a conversation with a sailor named Kreisberg, who suggested to go to a movie, but instead they ended up taking a short walk. Brighton claimed that Kreisberg began to mash up against him and treat him as if he was a girl. He sat down on the grass beside me, beside some concrete steps, and he sucked me off right there. James Goggins, a new recruit in the summer, when the number of operatives swelled to over 40. So now we went from at least 12 to about 40 of these guys, right? Because the word got out. I'm sure.
Swelling operatives is a problem.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's definitely a problem. You should see a doctor after 4 hours. And one of Arnold's busiest young men, by the way, acknowledged a midnight twist on the grass near 40 steps on Cliff Walk, in which he was filleted, but then failed to get the name of the sailor who did him.
Well, I hope he was filleted and not filleted.
Yep. So they met again. Okay. And a second time, Goggins, he forgot, man. He couldn't remember the guy's name.
He was distracted.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. So this became the norm for the operatives. Operatives would share their lurid details of their successful encounters with their targets with Arnold and Hudson. Then they would be sent out again to get, quote, more evidence. Yeah.
Oh Oh my god! I'm so glad you did this one, man. I'm so glad you did this podcast. It's fucking brilliant. Oh, thanks. I don't remember his name. I better go back.
I gotta go back and
more
check
gay
this
stuff.
out. I wasn't really sure about what happened, sir. I need to get more
Oh my
details.
god!
For the first, the ladies of the night to be brought in. Sorry, the ladies of Newport.
I've read the script. I know what happens, and it's still funny.
Was Fred Hogg, Fred Hoag, a bit part silent screen actor before the war. Ironically, one of the most discreet members of the circle. Nervous and confused, he professed to be willing to tell whatever he knew about the gay life in Newport, as did many of the men rounded up in the coming weeks.
That's how I like my gay guys, nervous and confused.
By the time 5 men were sitting in the brig 5 days later, a panic had set in amongst the potential suspects.
Yeah.
Men were arrested, began implicating others whom the operatives had met. Had never met.
Witch trial thing.
Yeah, so people that never had sex with these dudes were getting outed by their own, unfortunately.
This guy's even gayer than I am.
Yeah. With more than a dozen in detention by the end of the next week, the numbers were scheduled to rise. Lieutenant Commander Foster, head of the court inquiry, began to wonder if the Navy was going to be able to contain Irwin Arnold's one-man purity crusade. The brig aboard the U.S. Constellation was full
of gays.
Yeah, full of gays. And if Arnold was not put in check, he'd hang the whole situation of Rhode Island. Foster complained to another officer.
That has to be the most fabulous brig in history.
Yeah.
Are these guys done for homosexuality?
That's one of the gentlemen there. That's
that's only one guy.
Yeah, that's just one picture right there. So
he's a gay guy. Sodomy.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Poor guy.
Sorry, man. Yeah. Whatever the state of user.
On May 1st, Did I skip ahead too far?
I don't think so. You're right. I think you're on.
Sorry, it's just my this new computer is just awkward. May 1st, 1919.
You've been bragging about that new computer for a while now. Yeah, we get it. You've got a new computer, okay?
Foster Court of Inquiry announced its findings and declared that sufficient evidence had been gathered to court-martial 15 of the arrested sailors. They remained behind bars all summer and were tried in the fall, at which time some were released and others sentenced to various prison terms. The matter might have ended if it had not been for Arnold and Hudson and a few other equally zealous officers wished to press on with the investigation even before the first court-martial began, expanding their field of operatives beyond downtown Newport, encompassing the arrest civilian homosexuals as well.
Oh, great. Nice.
And Roosevelt gave his permission and allotted the needs funding and displaying what often felt to be dismay of lack of concern over the ethics of entrapment and welfare of the sailors, some of whom in their teens and who were being allowed and encouraged really to participate in illegal sex acts. So it's basically turned them into prostitutes.
That is entrapment.
Yep.
That is entrapment. But that wasn't illegal in 1919, was it entrapment?
That's a good question. I believe it was.
We had a podcast before, and it was around the 1920 when they were definitely doing entrapment. Nobody did anything but that either. I forget which one it was, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which the Attorney General at this time was Palmer, by the way. So,
that's the Pomerades. Yeah, that must be the. Yeah.
So, and in fact, they had approached him about this, and he kind of put it back on the Navy to conduct their own.
Okay, so, but they're stretching out to civilians now.
Yeah. When Reverend Samuel Neil Kent was arrested in midsummer, the investigation officially ended and the troublesome publicity began. He was charged with 11 counts of lewd and scandalous behavior. That a minister who had risked his life the year before tending to the sick during the dreaded influenza epidemic could also be the same man who liked to masturbate. Sailors boarded on incomprehensible to the folks of Rhode Island.
Wait, you mean somebody can be gay and useful to society?
It's just bizarre, right?
At the same time, no, that's
he's
not.
A good guy, but he's gay. What the?
We've been throwing these guys into the ovens. Why didn't somebody tell us?
Yeah, exactly. It's not too far from the truth here, right? So, Anyhoozle. Kent's trial necessarily brought out that brought out all that Arnold had labored to keep secret. Men in their late 20s who would certainly have declined the assignment had allowed their bodies to be used in, quote, unspeakable ways.
Speakable ways.
When one befuddled operative left the stand, having to acknowledge that he understood that his instructions were to let the minister, quote, play with my penis and allow it until I had an emission. Reaction in town set against the Navy and its tactics. Yeah. Kent was found innocent. This stung by the verdict. Yep. Yeah. Stung by the verdict, the government wasn't ready to lead the matters to rest. Under a new recent war statute prohibiting conduct leading to the moral contamination within a 10-mile zone of any. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, moral contamination within a 10-mile zone.
Yeah. Plans were made to try Kent a second time in federal court. He was hunted down like a fugitive while recuperating at Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan, which I believe is the John Kellogg Institute.
Oh, about John Kellogg Institute of Masturbation.
Where you try to keep you from masturbating and doing a lot of that.
That was a federal crime now. Nobody was brought across state lines or anything, were they?
No, it doesn't believe to. No. Okay. But anyways, he was brought back to Providence to face his second trial. Embarrassing as the ordeal was for Samuel Kent, the second trial in January 1920 was no less a rejection of the Navy's approach and values than the first. The highly capable defense attorney humiliated Arnold's operatives, hammering away at their inact memories and dwelling on to what extent which they had solicited and enjoyed the attention of many men they reported on. By this strategy, the debauched nature of operatives, or just as frightening as thought the debauchery of these boys by the government, in which whose care their parents had entrusted them, became more pressing concern for those who suppose the lusting Newport homosexual crowd. 14 clergy.
That's a valid point.
Yeah, right? 14 clergymen, business leaders, and prominent socialite friends of Kent's testified on his behalf, and Kent was again found innocent.
But they never said. What I like about this is Kent was found innocent, but at no point during this are they saying he wasn't gay. Just that he's innocent of whatever crime they said.
The scandal might have died there if not for Providence journalist John Ratham. In January 1920, the journal reported Reverend Kent's acquittal on the federal charges of immoral conduct, and editorial praised the verdict and accused Navy Secretary Daniels of deploying, quote, every bestial and degrading scheme, quote, to gather evidence. Ratham demanded that the U.S. Senate Committee on Naval Affairs do an investigation. He traded public charges with FDR over the Assistant Secretary's knowledge of the gay sex sting. He sent telegrams with stories to papers around the country, fanning flames for the national scandal. 2 months later, the commission issued a whitewash report by the Navy, which led to an investigation by the Senate. 3 senators made up the committee to investigate the scandal. Arnold's transcripts were read, and sailors on both sides were interviewed. Okay. Also, in 1920, the Democratic Party nominated Roosevelt for vice president on a ticket with James Cox. Throughout the presidential campaign, Ratham continued to accuse Roosevelt of mishandling allegations of sex crimes in the Navy. On the eve of the election, Roosevelt struck back, filing a $500,000 libel suit against Ratham. He also persuaded the Justice Department to make public Rantham's 1918's confession he made to the Justice Department about spinning spy fables.
Lying, he means, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Stung by this release of his dark secret, Ratham blasted Roosevelt in an editorial as, quote, the professor of an immature mind, a shadow thinker on subjects too deep for him, an immature statesman.
This is after This is after the guy sued him for libel.
Yeah,
Okay, brave move, but an idiot.
right. In November, Cox Roosevelt were buried by the ballot box by Republican Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, which it should be Warren G. fucking from now on, because he fucked more people than anybody as a president. Warren G. Harding was just he liked to fuck. Anyways,
like Warren G. Hard, am I right?
Yeah, he was very hard. Senate hearings.
Basically, two of the names on the ticket were Hard Cox.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah. Calvin Coolidge is kind of, it's close, right? It's close. Anyways, Senate hearings into the Newport scandal continued after the election. There, Fred Hogue told the Senate, told him of Lieutenant Hudson's threat to, quote, make it hard, end quote, for friends of his unless he testified.
By which he meant difficult.
Right. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. Because it could be. Anyways. Yeah.
Well, they would.
I know.
These guys went around and said, do gay stuff, yeah.
Right. So, but basically told him, hey, you gotta lie that you slept with Kent, right?
Yeah.
And others insisted that they had been denied counsel and were beaten up under interrogation and coached in their self-incriminating testimony.
All that stuff is a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, it's very FBI-ish. The committee members also met with the Franklin Roosevelt, the now indignant Arnold and Hudson, and as many of them panicked operatives they could locate, several of whom had suddenly developed what the senator described as a suspicious, convenient memory lapses.
There you go.
In July 1921, the Senate.
There were 6 months. They were at it for 6 months. Those hearings. Okay.
Yeah, very thorough. They released their findings with excoriation of the Navy. Quote, Secretary Daniels or Assistant Secretary Franklin D. Roosevelt should have allowed enlisted men to be placed in a position where such acts, even liable to occur, is, in the opinion of the committee, a most deplorable, disgraceful, and unnatural proceedings. The committee reported that Roosevelt asserted he had not known of these tactics used in Newport. Right. The committee's majority report countered that Roosevelt, quote, had knowledge that the enlisted personnel had been and were used to investigate perversion and must have realized that Navy men had allowed lewd and immoral acts to be performed upon them.
You must allow the priest to play with your penis until emission.
That's what you guys said, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. In screaming headlines, the journal Rantham claimed vindication in FDR's libel suit never went to trial. Sorry, there's another photo I was going to have. I might as well throw this one up.
Oh, there he is.
Two of the investigating senators also had something to say on the subject of the government's policies towards homosexuality in general. If the medical and scientific community was now suggesting that sexual deviance was a mental illness rather than a crime, it should be treated as such, they argued. The recommendation was made that anyone in the armed services suspected of homosexuality be dishonorably discharged and referred to medical care rather than tried and imprisoned. Quote, pervasion is not a crime, Senator Keyes maintained, but a disease that should be properly treated in a hospital. Edwin Derby and Joseph Daniels, his successor in the administration of Warren G. Harding, dismissed this proposal.
Gay is still illegal.
Fuck it. The Newport scandal faded rather quickly from the national news. It was not the kind of occurrence that the public enjoyed hearing about, and by the time FDR ran for the governorship of New York in 1928, and then for the presidency 4 years later, the sad fate of the Newport men and the sexual active and trappers and Roosevelt part in the affair was ancient history, right? So it came and it went. In not funny. Okay, in 2012.
Sorry, Seamus, that's my fault.
That's okay. In 2012, Dave Foley, you might know from Kids in the Hall and News Radio, produced
News Radio, I love that show.
Yep, produced a play called "A Hole in the Fence," a comedy based on the Newport sex scandal.
Okay,
so there we are.
And very easy to make a comedy out of that. Lots of funny lines. And that's the end of your script, I'm going to guess.
That's the end of the script. So yeah.
Well,
so
that's now set up for the real podcast that you want to do.
Yeah, and hopefully, as you know, things can change, but hopefully it should be the next episode. If not, then we'll be yelling about something else. But that should be the next episode.
Bill and Mar. Okay,
something like that. So
next is how about now? What's new? Fuck's sake. Right. Just before every podcast, I put CIA into Google and hit the news tab, and Seamus puts FBI into Google and hits the news tab. And then we pick 2 or 3 stories we think might be funny or interesting. We haven't told each other about it. So we're seeing these things for the first time now, just like you. Seamus, tell me about the enormous slew of sites you have when you put FBI into Google and hit the news tab. What happened?
I only have really one worth talking about.
He said he only had one.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's worth talking about, but anyways. We've kind of touched on this story off and on as we've done these.
Wiretaps, is it?
Close. 2 FBI officials, ex-officials now, who traded anti-Trump text close to settlement over alleged privacy violations.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's different.
New report shows that the FBI assaults on American law enforcement reached a 10-year high in 2023 with more than 79. Sorry, assault on American. What is that? That doesn't make sense for what the rest of this is about.
It says assault on cops.
Okay, that's a different story. I don't know why that popped up. Okay. So yeah, they've reached a tentative settlement with the Justice Department, resolving the claims of the privacy violated. When the department leaked to the news media text messages that they had sent one another that despaired former president, now convicted felon, Donald Trump. The tentative deal was disclosed in a brief court filing on Tuesday and did not reveal any of the terms. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean,
we'll find out next podcast.
Kind of screwed up situation.
Yeah.
So, all right, so that's all I got.
Out
there.
I have 3 links. None of them are particularly stunning. But the first one is former CIA agent says 4 powerful underutilized phrases can help you establish credibility and earn anyone's trust. I guess she means like in a leadership capacity. 4 phrases are: 1, what information do you need? Number 2, is there anyone else who needs to be a part of this discussion? Number 3, who disagrees? And number 4, I don't know, but I'll find out and I'll come back to you. And I can see why all those phrases would be interesting and powerful, to be honest. Next, we have, do you have the little clip?
Yeah.
Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns, William Burns. Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns this week.
Paris.
Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns, William Burns. Where the hell is William Burns? William Burns this week.
Oh, he's in Paris. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Okay. At time of taping, he's in Paris. And the third link is U.S. can't love Taiwan too much. They had an election in Taiwan recently. Former CIA official says. Dennis Wilder, Georgetown University professor and former CIA deputy assistant director for East Asia, says he worries that Taiwan's new president, Lai Ching-te, provoked Beijing a bit too far in his inaugural speech.
Ooh.
China claims ownership over Taiwan.
Right.
And any country that does business with China will also reject Taiwan as an independent country for business reasons rather than political ones. He discusses the implications of the upcoming U.S. elections on trade ties between Washington and Beijing. Not Taipei, you notice, Beijing. Wilder speaks with David Ingalls on Bloomberg. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Look it up if you want to know about the Taiwan thing. It's quite interesting, but not for this podcast. That's just my link. That are all my CIA links. And I think we're done.
Alrighty then.
Yeah. So the next podcast will be in 2 weeks, and it may be another gay thing, or it might be something I do.
Another gay thing.
Or it might be
the FBI will actually make a real appearance in this next episode.
Oh, we have it mapped out, do you?
Yeah, if in fact that's where we end up. So that's the plan. So
Well, you're going to do it anyway. It just might not be in 2 weeks, right?
right. So
Okay, cool. It's definitely going to happen. It's pretty.
And there's honestly there's a lot to the story. I don't even know if we can cover the brass tacks of it in just one more episode. We might have 3. There's also a lot of other related stories that are kind of linked to this. But
Seamus, what's that?
Sorry. Yeah. This is a Trump.
I'm supposed to be the one in the hole in the wall place.
Exactly.
At 8 p.m. Seamus, please.
But so we'll have to see. But I think we'll just cover the next portion.
You want to come down with me? We'll make it a jib event on Friday night. It's the 2 of us.
I need my own hole. So
You need your own hole. She has a name, Seamus.
Oh, okay. Glory. Alrighty. Well, we'll see all.
Apologize for the explicit sexual references in this episode. If you're sensitive about that kind of thing. No, you're not. No, you're watching this podcast, right?
Alrighty. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Bye, guys.
Bye. We're froze.
Much gay?
Yeah, it got stuck.